We're continuing to see mortgage interest rates climb, but what is that doing to home values? We have new reports with data on home values, and it shows some declines. Let's get into the specifics and get to the bottom line. We've got some new data on where things stand in the housing market, so let's get into the numbers. Purchase application volume fell by 0.4% week over week, so relatively small decline. That does put us down though 29% when we look at comps from last year. Another important data point we got was pending home sales. This shows us the measurement of signed contracts on existing homes, and this measurement was for the month of August. We saw a decline of 2% month over month, which was in line with expectations. That puts us down in total sales 24% year over year. Another important data point that we're keeping a close eye on is home value, right? Everyone's been speculating this year, where are things going with residential home values? And we got data from the National Case-Shiller Home Price Index. This is what we consider the gold standard for appreciation data. And what it showed was that home prices fell by 0.3% in the month of July. So that still leaves us at a 15.8% increase year over year, but that's a decline from the previous year over year reading that we had of 18.1%. Now it's important to keep in mind that the majority of the decline that we saw was from some of the major cities out there, like San Francisco, Seattle, San Diego, LA, etc. Those cities showed some steep month over month declines and contributed to this overall number of a drop of 0.3%. Now, when we look at other information, other data points, another great data point that we have is the FHFA. So they have a home price index which measures appreciation on single-family homes that have a conforming loan amount. This means it excludes cash buyers and jumbo loans, but it does give us really valuable data. They reported prices falling by 0.6% in the month of July, which cools the year-over-year value appreciation from 16.2% to 13.9%. So certainly some interesting figures and something to keep a close eye on. A lot of the most accurate data we have is trailing. So we want to see where things go because everything has changed rapidly from one month to the next. And one other data point that we have is related to new home sales. This is going to be a measurement of signed contracts on new homes. So this actually rose 29%, which was a lot stronger than expectations. Expectations put us at about a 6% decline. So really big difference in what the number came in at. And with that positive revision, sales for new construction are now flat on a year over year basis. So it's interesting seeing this, right? And looking at it, one of the things that we can speculate is that part of the strength in this new construction market could be tied to the limited inventory of existing homes for sale. We know that some homeowners who have a low interest rate in place would have less of an incentive to make a new purchase and list their current property for sale. So we've seen new construction and sales in that area stronger than expected. Now, let's dig into mortgage rates because that's been a huge story this year as they've climbed substantially. So Jake, tell us about what we're seeing right now for mortgage rates and the data that we have, and then a little bit more context on what's going on there.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Well, with regards to mortgage rates, we saw a move, unfortunately, to the worse. Rates went from 6.25% up to 6.52%. So that's up roughly 3.5% compared to this same time last year. Monday of last week was the biggest down day for mortgage bonds since basically the pandemic. March of 2020 was back when we saw a day like what we saw last Monday. And unfortunately, that pushed mortgage rates significantly higher. Now, the National Association of Realtors chief economist Lawrence Yun sees that mortgage rates could go even higher, even nearing 7%. But when inflation does start to come down, as we've mentioned before, rates will also begin to improve. He projected that home prices should finish the year up about 10%, and he also projects that sales will actually pick up in the fourth quarter. Now, it's possible to see that inflation will begin to drop more in October when we start to replace some of the more year-over-year comps with newer data. the Fed has made it really clear that they're going to continue to tighten, and we're going to see more meaningful strides in the reduction of inflation. And there are concerns, though, that the Fed is moving too quickly and that their tightening might be too much too soon before we can actually see the impact of that tightening, and they may be forced to reverse course. Finally, Black Knight had reported that the national delinquency rate had also dropped in August to 2.79%, and so that's just 4 basis points above the May 2022 record lows, which just lends to Kyle's point that people have locked in low rates and they don't want to get rid of them.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, that's definitely some important data to keep in mind, and at the very least, it's been interesting to see all the changes that have happened thus far in interest rates, inflation, and overall with our housing market. So one other thing that's really important to keep in mind that might not be initially apparent is that the global monetary policy from other countries can have a significant impact on the US economy and therefore our housing market. So, one example of that we saw play out this week was the United Kingdom and their recently proposed new budget. This budget drew really sharp criticism from the IMF and Moody's. They threatened to reduce the credit rating of the UK, and so that obviously impacts things. They made an announcement of a new quantitative easing program. So they're going to be purchasing more bonds, and that actually had an impact on the yields of the bonds in the US market, which has been a welcome relief in a counter direction of giving us a little bit of improvement in interest rates. So, some of these factors are not quite so obvious, but are still important to keep an eye on because they're going to impact where things stand with interest rates and the housing market here in the US. So that was one common example from this week that was worthwhile to bring up and take a look at. We're going to continue to bring you highlights of most important and relevant data points and news that impact the housing market. We want to have all of the business partners that we work with and anyone who chooses to tune into this video to have a clear picture of what's going on so that we can better operate. So thanks for tuning in to The Bottom Line, and we'll see you next week.